I like that mic.
This is what they like. Super mic.
This looks badass. Like some Jocko would have.
Here we go. All right. What's cooking, Gumbo Nation? You're listening to Mortgage Gumbo with Dwayne Stein right here on iHeartRadio, and I'm your host, Dwayne Stein, the Gulf South Mortgage Authority. If you want to join the show, 504-260-0995, or you can shoot an email to info@mortgagegumbo.com. This is your home show where, heck, for 8 years, I'm going to start saying it, since in 2 weeks we make 8 years. For 8 years, we have been providing education and options to you, the listener, affectionately known as the Gumbo Nation. And super excited to have joining us in studio today, Total Home Authority member Jarod Miguez with Fleur Law and Title is in studio. We've got some questions I posted out on Facebook yesterday. If you had anything or to send to the inbox, info@mortgagegumbo.com. So we've got some scenarios that we will be sharing with you, and who better to answer them. So excited to have him on the show. So he's going through. The guy never, ever stops working. And congrats, bro, on probably, again, like we said, you never stop working. So congrats on the new baby boy, man.
Thanks, man. He's awesome. Little Walter Jarod Miguez. He's a stud.
That's awesome, bro. It's it just puts things in perspective, right?
For sure.
You know, and then this is your third child, right?
2 little girls and a boy.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
so you got your dude now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
do you shut it down now?
Oh, that's not up to me.
You know
I don't make that
true,
decision.
Right? You're right, bro. You know, he's got all the legal questions. You know what I'm saying?
I can't answer that
Personal stuff, we can maybe get his wife in here, and then she can answer that kind of stuff. But congrats on that. Sleeping, not sleeping.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, it's like you got to wake him up to eat. The dude eats, poops, and sleeps, but it's like you got to wake him up to do the other two. He sleeps like he's awesome.
Dude,
he's great.
That is amazing, because I remember when at Gavin, dude, like we brought him home, and dude, for the first 3 days, the kid's crying, and I'm like, I'm flipping him over. Where's the return policy? Like, what's up with this? And I'm at first I'm like, you got it, bro. Eventually, your voice has got to go out.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to outweigh him, dude.
Yeah.
And it was.
Well, he's my boy's got 2 girls at home that take all the air out of the room. They talk enough for all of us put together. So I mean, he's gonna have to speak up if he's gonna want to be heard in my house.
Yeah. So he's gonna. And then how old are your daughters?
4 and 2.
Yeah. So he's gonna. That's great ages though, bro.
Yeah.
Because. He's going to come in and he can protect them. They're not like way old enough.
I'm already working on that.
Yeah, and then he's got to be like, look, leave him alone, chill out. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, let's not get this personal stuff. So, he's on the show today. Fleur Law and Title, the legends of Law and Title. Amazing. So excited about that. So we're going to get some questions answered there. Listen, the Fed spoke this week, and we've been telling you, and I mentioned it on Wednesday, my exact words, and y'all are very fortunate to have this show, because I think Jerome Powell is even listening, because he used my exact words when he said more pain is coming. So I want to take a minute to kind of discuss for you to understand. And it's going to show in the questions that I've got for Jarod as well. But folks, we've not peaked on inflation. recession, all this. And I had a great comment on YouTube. And if you want to subscribe to Mortgage Gumbo, go to YouTube, type in Mortgage Gumbo, and subscribe. 400-plus videos, blah, blah, blah. But I had a guy, he replied to one of my videos saying, when I put a post out saying that the Fed speaking and it's not a housing recession, a post I did this week. And his comment was, this won't age well based on the Fed's policies that they talked about yesterday. And this is where the passion I have comes in, because no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, I need y'all to understand when the Fed speaks, it has nothing to do with the housing market and all these headlines. And I would encourage you, go back and join the Gumbo Nation Facebook group if you're not, and go listen to what I talked about on Wednesday. And it's Gumbo Nation. We are not in a housing recession. I would say we may be in a activity recession is kind of what I called it. Maybe things have slowed down from that standpoint. But when you have builders that have stopped building, you have people who aren't selling their houses because they're at 2.5%. We're going to talk about that, the 3 Ds, when it comes to refinancing. Just made that up on the spot. But, but when we're going to talk about that, there's a lack of inventory. So you couple that with rising interest rates, and right now what you have is, for the first time in 30 years, I could tell you the last 4 months, this is probably the only time it's ever been beneficial for both parties, the seller and the buyer. You look, the last couple of years, it's been all about the sellers selling, and the buyers have been able to come in because at 2.5%, who cares, right? Now when you've got elevated interest rates, the people who are buying right now are like, I don't give a poop.
Yeah.
I want to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I'm not worried about. They're bought into what we're saying on this show every week, that interest rate's a number on a piece of paper. They're bought into the marry the house, date the rate, right? Like, let's just get in the house. And it's weird because from the lending side, it's hard for me. It's easy for me to explain to people, but it's hard for me even to understand that you're doing a loan knowing you're having to tell people you got another loan you're going to have to do. But that's why I want us to get to this inflation. I want this recession to come in. I want them to start calling it, right? We were talking about before the show. Look at restaurants. They're packed.
Yeah, dude. People are still eating.
People are still eating. Credit card debt. My gosh. The numbers there are through the roof. And if you want to know and get an idea of exactly what the heck is going on with credit card, go to mortgagegumbo.com, click on resources, and then there's a credit card interest calculator on there I put on there for you. Go check that out. And take your first statement from March before the Fed started hiking rates, and now look at it and look at that difference, right? So these credit cards are in an inflation state right now. And you know what people are using to get through this inflation? Credit cards. And when you're looking at it, and I've got the number here somewhere, the amount of credit card debt, and this just came out, Gotta Love Live Radio, let's see, second quarter, rising credit card accounts in the second quarter, $233 million. Dang. That's the highest since 2008, right? America's have an absolute mountain of credit card debt, $887 billion in credit card debt, right? So that's a $46 billion jump from the first quarter. $46 billion. So, you know what we're doing right now? Throw up that slab, man. I'm getting my points. I'm getting my rewards, right? I'm doing all these things. So nobody's feeling it. Look at when they say unemployment continues to drop. As much as I want everybody to have jobs, that's not a sign of inflation. That's not a sign of a recession. So when Powell says there's more pain to come, listeners, I need you to understand the Fed is looking for damage to the economy. And I don't mean that to be bad. I mean that for you to understand, so we're not living in some pretend world, right? I want you to just be able to hear and know exactly what's going on. So I appreciate Powell. I appreciate them being transparent. But here's what's going to happen in September when they meet on the 20th. They're going to raise another 50 to 75 basis points. So now you're going to go from 0% where you've been living the last 2.5 years to 3 to 3.25. So there's a lot going on there. Then guess what happened? The printing press got cranked back up. Paying $10,000 off in student loans. Folks, what do you think that's going to do? That just brought back free money. So now, as they talk about doing that, and they kick down the road, and I told you it was going to happen by the end of August, now, student loan debt, you don't have to start paying that back till the end of the year. They're going to revisit it. So 3 years it will be. Mm-hmm. Brother, you haven't had to pay one penny on your student loans. And while they're not reporting it late, guess what's happened to the interest, bro? It's just going on top. Yeah. So, sure, here's 10 grand. The institutions aren't going to go, you know what, maybe we need to stop charging so much for people to go get their education. No. It's great. Oh, you want to waive 10 grand? Raise the prices, just like they did on electric vehicles. They gave a $7,500 grant. Amazingly, all electric vehicles went up $7,500, right? So I just want folks to understand when we're looking at this, the Fed is trying to figure out long-term averages so we don't have this, listeners. That is the big thing there. How do they kind of stop and move forward? So they're talking about they want to be data dependent. Yesterday, the stock market lost $900. Confusing. I'll be honest, don't know why. What came out? If everything is, and all you hear these prognosticate, everything's priced into the market. Yeah? Explain yesterday then. If we know what the Fed's going to say and we know the Fed's going to raise rates, why did he speak and then the market tank that 900, go down by 900 points? So those are the things that I want everybody to be understanding. That's why. And it's shameless plugs, but if you're tuning in and you are at a record pace, I'm trying to get all the information out there. That's why we've got Jarod Miguez, the legends of law and title, in studio. We're talking now more than ever. A person with a trench coat with nothing underneath it could have been standing on a corner the last 2 years, opened their trench coat where you could see all the goods, male or female, and said 2.5% rates. Somebody pulled over and said, hey, let's chat. Now what are we left with, right? So it's up to us, the Total Home Authority, Mortgage Gumbo, to make sure that we're getting all that information out to you. So on the other side of the break, he's here. He looks good. He's definitely not rested as a father. You just can't be. And his son's sleeping, but he's got a 2- and a 4-year-old daughter. That's what's keeping him rocking and rolling, right? So he's here. Jarod Miguez with Fleur Law and Title is in studio. If you've got questions, send them to info@mortgagegumbo.com. If you're hanging out with us on Facebook, I see my boy Richie Rip wanting to brag on the Saints last night. I hear you. We'll talk about that offline. You're listening to Mortgage Gumbo with Dwayne Steiner right here on iHeartRadio, 504-260-0995. What's your voice say? happy enough to have them back with us in studio is Jarod Miguez, the Legends of Law and Title. They're fantastic, and we've got some scenarios, and we're going to talk about those. But welcome back to the show, my man. Appreciate you being back here. I know just had a baby within the last week, and you're here doing what you do, man. So welcome back, brother.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, man. Excited.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So let's talk about just our side of the industry. The great thing about y'all is why I have to total home. It's a one-stop shop, right? It's Fleur Law and Title.
Yeah.
Right? And so much of what's going on now in our industry, and me and realtors laugh about this, and I'm sure you see it, and on your end, smile, shake hands, kiss babies, right? I mean, that's the name of the game. And for us, what we're seeing is a lot of the lenders out there, even the realtors, the last 2 years was great. So now we talk about who couldn't sell 2.5% interest rates. Everybody was rocking and rolling, selling, doing all these different things. And you know what didn't pop up a lot? Issues. Because if it didn't work, it just, whatever, they went and got another offer, or they went and did it, and then they sold it a month later, and it was still fine. They still got $20,000 over asking.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing more of what I think is, I don't want to say we're not the bottom of the barrel, but the more challenging,
For sure.
right? It's like anything, right? You take the low hanging fruit. That's great. Let's rock and roll. Now we're getting into the middle of the tree. So now we gotta climb. We
gotta fight for a little more.
We gotta sweat a little bit. And what I keep telling people is this: the folks who are refinancing, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I've got a scenario that I want to kind of present to you, so you could kind of, number one, make sure that I advise, and of course I sent them to you because you are the expert. Is if you're refinancing right now, it's kind of the 3D, right? It's death, divorce, debt. And debt we're not seeing as much yet, but we're going to. So a scenario I had this week is a lady was married, husband died in 2012. Okay? It's now 2022, 10 years later. So husband had a previous daughter who is the executor of his estate. Look, I don't know. Maybe he has tons of money. Maybe he just, people, having something is better than having nothing.
For sure.
We agree on that, right? So I didn't get into the specifics, but the reason I sent her to y'all was she was telling me that her attorney and the executor of the estate had wrote something up saying they agreed to buy the house. It's worth $350,000. They agreed $150,000.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, so she called. I listened to the show. Should I take something out of my 401k or should I refinance? So my first question is, have you opened succession?
Yeah.
She's like, well, no, why should I have to do that? The attorney said we got an agreement and it's fine. I told her, if you pay them anything and then the husband is still on the title.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, the way it's written up, he could sign off on it. I said, but he's not signing off on it anymore. He's passed away.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have there, right? So in Louisiana, per se, I mean, somebody passes away.
Yeah.
You have to open succession. I mean,
you have to actually transfer the ownership from the deceased person to whoever they're transferring it to. Which in this situation, the surviving spouse trying to stay in the house or she's trying to sell it. That husband's going to have to open succession in order to transfer it over. And of course, I'm not looking at all the dynamics of the situation.
Right.
But, it's an attorney who handles succession work doesn't always understand on the back end if I'm going to actually transfer ownership or refinance and the title insurance side of everything, how you actually convey merchantable title. They're trying to get succession open, transfer handle the estate, and then move on. We frequently have to get these things and clean them up on the back end. Like, so I always recommend, if you're not working with an attorney that does real estate transactions, loop us in, and we can help strategize with that succession attorney to get that done. Because ultimately, even if the surviving spouse pays off that daughter, and they don't actually open succession and transfer ownership over to her fully, that the state's still on title. It's not going away until you actually transfer it over to some sort of conveyance transfer.
So let's take the worst case scenario in this, because that's what I want people on. People will resonate, right, to worst case. Best case scenario is she calls you, y'all do succession, because now the daughter's trying to tell her you got to be out by this date or that date, because daughter wants to put a for sale sign in front of it and sell it. It's a free and clear house, and she's got a little leverage. So she's like telling her, I'll give you $30,000 off if you close by X date.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing here is, in a worst case scenario, because she mentioned going to get just money out of her 401k or borrowing against her life insurance policy.
Paying off surviving spouse,
Giving the estate, I guess,
Gotcha.
right, when you have an executor. So if she does that and the lady goes, okay, cool, all she's basically still doing is, she owns the home, but she still can never sell. She's
gonna put a sign on the yard and then come to get to 2 weeks into closing and realize that she needs to do some cleanup on the back end. She's gonna have to go actually transfer ownership from surviving spouse or from the daughter, whoever's going to be actually selling it to seller's property.
So transfer of ownership at that point would also mean she's going to eventually have to open succession. So could that daughter at that point go, you know what? I want X now. I mean, I know that seems like in the movies, like, hey.
Oh, you'd be surprised. I've seen it happen before where, especially if the contract's not signed by the estate or by whoever's not selling, if the contract's not fully signed and that person's bound. So, like me and Stephanie, right, if we're trying to sell a house, I sign the contract, she doesn't. We get 2 weeks before closing and Stephanie decides to change her mind or decides she doesn't want to sell. I'm stuck in with a binding contract without her being on the contract, and she can name her price. In order to be signed this contract, you got to pay me an extra more than half of it.
And you see that?
Oh, yeah, I've seen it before. I've seen terrible situations when that happened where people are just taking full advantage of. And if you just do a little research on the front end and find out how to actually strategize this and get it done the right way, you can avoid a lot of those issues.
And I think, listeners, that's what I want, and that's what I think what we're trying to get you to understand is this. There's a lot more than, and this is why we have snapsendandsave.com. This is why we tell you if you're thinking about selling your home, get with us, because we've got Jarod. You're going to get with us. We don't expect you to know everything. You're good at what you do, and you're wanting to sell your home, right? And if you're selling your home right now, you're doing it just like if you're refinance, death, divorce, or debt, or maybe even relo. So we want to help you. We want to help you with that. I'm going to get you in touch with Jarod. I'm going to get you with a realtor that's going to look into and get you with Jarod. That way they can look at and find out, is there something that maybe the house you bought 25 years ago, something wasn't done then. And a lot of people sometimes get mad at us because we actually go back and do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And maybe it takes, it only takes a couple days, but when you're not working with Fleur and you work with these other folks, it could take weeks and screws things up. But you got to know. And that's where a lot of these realtors and a lot of these lenders, this lender, for instance, for this poor lady, I mean, it shouldn't get to the fact of, we found out at underwriting that the title's jacked up. That should have been, we should have known that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. So we've now started pre-approving properties for real estate agents and sellers. So you come to us and you want to put your property on the market, we will give you a stamp of approval, or we'll do a pre-search to let you know exactly what needs to be cleaned up, so the agents don't spend their time getting these properties listed and realize in underwriting they got to solve a problem, or these sellers, they make sure they got all their ducks in the row before they get a contract on the property. Especially these properties, like you said, debt. A lot of these people that are in foreclosure or in forbearance, they'll go look at their mortgage statement and say, $100,000, and I want to make $20,000 so I can buy another house. Well, they list it for $120,000, and then they go back and look and say, you're in forbearance now, or you're in foreclosure, and you got attorney's fees tacked on top of that in $20,000. Now you're walking away with nothing. Yeah, and so we'll do the pre-search on that. We'll say, well, look, you got a first mortgage, but you're in foreclosure. Attorney or agent or seller, you need to go to that the firm representing that lender Ask them for a payoff, not just the creditor, so you can get all the fees associated with it. No, you're not upside down on that house.
Folks, that is why we have the Legends of Law and Title. That is why we have Fleur de Lis. We've got Jarod, Jeff, his entire team. Those are, I mean, who else is doing that? They're going to pre-approve your property search. So that's why I'm saying come to Mortgage Gumbo. Go to Snap, Send, and Save. Not sure? We'll put you in touch with them. Go to FDL-Lawandtitle.com. We'll get you to these folks so you can find these things out. Now more than ever, we're past the hammer a sign in the yard and start counting your money. Mm-hmm. This ain't Kenny Rogers, right? Count your money, tell you whatever it is. So these are the things that we're dealing with. We're up against a break. On the other side, more of Fleur de Lis Law and Title in studio. Jarod, Miguez, the Legends of Law and Title are here. FDL Law and Title.com. If you got a question, 504-260-0995 or info@mortgagegumbo.com. You're listening to Mortgage Gumbo with Dwayne Stein right here on iHeartRadio.
That's cute as shit, huh?
Oh, yeah, dude.
I love girls reading the book to my kid.
Oh, that's awesome, bro. Yes. That's what it's about, dude. behaves, the man. I mean, he listens to the show. That is awesome. You're listening to Mortgage Gumbo with Dwayne Stein right here on iHeartRadio. 504-260-0995. Total Home Authority members. Florida Lead Title in studio. In person, Jarod, Miguez, the legends of law and title. If you want to join the show, 504-260-0995, or shoot an email to info@mortgagegumbo.com. So, got a scenario that I sent to Jarod, and I think the people actually called him, so we'll get his side of the story. But, again, divorce. Mm-hmm. This is what's going – look, a lot of stress going on right now, money, stuff like that. Divorce is becoming more and more prevalent, unfortunately. Now, got a client, gave us a call, going through a divorce. They cannot – first thing, folks, I want you to understand is this. In the state of Louisiana, you are either married or unmarried. I know Hollywood makes it look great when they say legal separations and all that. Louisiana, you're married or unmarried, okay? Same thing with most states. So that means until you are actually divorced and it's stamped off, if you're going to try to buy a house, that spouse, regardless if you don't live with him, you moved on with Johnny and all that, like the scenario earlier, 12 years later, if you're in the state of Louisiana, you're married or unmarried. So I had a scenario yesterday. Somebody gave me a call looking to buy a house. The first thing we're going to do is we've got to find out, do you qualify on your own? And we're always going to try to go with a conventional loan first. Here's why. Because with a conventional loan, you do not have to count if you qualify on your own, meaning your income, you have your own income, you could cover your own debts. We don't need to include your spouse that you're getting a divorce from. Now, that spouse will have to sign over their rights to that property, quitclaim deed, right? Sign over their rights, kind of like the first scenario Jarod just talked about. The husband was passed away. That's why you've got the succession. Well, now you could do the quitclaim deed. He's alive. He can sign over. So if he's willing to sign over his rights to the property and you could afford to buy the new house with your own debts, you're good. Now, in this scenario, this particular young lady does not qualify conventional. Credit score is a little bit in check, so we've got to go FHA because there's some more leniency there as far as income goes. Now, with that being said, because she's still legally married, she has to include her spouse's debts to qualify, which she does. We've got it where it qualifies. However, we don't want him on the property, right? So kind of break down what is the best way, because you hear community property. You hear all these terms out there, Jarod. Kind of explain, because of the FHA, because of the loan program. And that's not, when we're calling you, we're telling you why we need you to go do what you need to do, right? Yeah. The loan program doesn't matter. It's the why for you guys. So explain going FHA, and even though she's buying that home, what's the best scenario, or in this situation, how are you going to have to handle this?
Yeah, if somebody's going through a divorce and y'all are trying to determine whether y'all are going to have to use the spouse's debts or not, you have to actually have the community property terminated, which is what the divorce is doing, but you also have to have a settlement of the debts and assets related to that community property. So if you're deciding to go FHA and you're iffy as to whether that the ex-wife or ex-husband's you want to include their debts and incomes, right? If you want to avoid doing that, you can't just terminate the community. You actually have to go through the actual divorce process and actually separate their assets and debts in order to not have to include the other spouse's debts on y'all's underwriting process. And so whenever if the divorce attorney is not notified up front that their client is going to buy a house, then they may not be moving as quickly as needed in order to terminate the community and satisfy or settle those debts. And so we get to underwriting, and we realize that they don't qualify as conventional. We need to go FHA. We're going to run it through FHA, but they're still married. We need to get a community property settlement, and we got a week to do it. Things don't move that fast in the divorce process. You got to give yourself some time, and so it's better up front to let us know as a title company and your lender know, hey, I'm going through divorce. I'm still married. We haven't finished the process. We need to. You as Mortgage Gumbo are going to let your clients know you need to get in touch with your divorce attorney now. Make sure you get all your ducks in a row before we get this house under contract, and we let the title company know that we have to work with the divorce attorneys to make sure everything's satisfied. Once we get all those things done, then we can actually move forward. If they qualify as conventional and they're still married, we can have on the deed have the ex-spouse sign that deed stating that it's the sole and separate property of the buying spouse, and that way that ex-spouse doesn't have any rights to that property, or the future ex-spouse doesn't have any rights to that property. But what's important here is that if the difference between a conventional and FHA loan, right? You know this better than me,
right?
That you got to make sure that if you're going to go FHA, and you got to consider all the debts of the spouse, and even though they're going through divorce, if they haven't terminated the community property and settled their affairs, you're still going to have to include that ex-spouse's debts and income whenever you're considering where they qualify.
And reason being is, and I want to clarify, it's because they're not the ex-spouse yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, or soon to be. So, but let's help the listeners understand this, because attorneys, for the most part, are right. And in this situation, the attorney says, well, we're going to execute a community property, whatever y'all call it.
Settlement, yeah.
Right? And that sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, hey, we're going through community property. That it's like I've had people come to me and go, we're going to sign a prenup. And I'm like, but you own the house already. So
yeah.
So explain that. While the attorney's not wrong by saying we're going to execute a community property report,
mm-hmm.
the problem of that report is that it doesn't go backwards, right? I mean, when you
the
file
community property settlement actually terminates and settles all the past debts. Any type of prenuptial or postnuptial agreement that's after they're married is not going to settle all the debts in the past. You got to actually terminate the community and then settle the debts. Assign certain debts to the husband, certain debts to the wife, and say these are y'all. Sign off on. Have a judge sign off on it in certain scenarios, so you can distinguish what's what, and then that's what you're going to use as the lender and the underwriter to say, okay, they might have been married, they might have gotten all these debts together, but they've agreed and the judge has signed off on that. They've separated them in this way, so we only have to consider these instead of having to consider all of the debts of the marriage
after they're divorced.
Yes, well, you can settle during the divorce in certain scenarios, but there are strict rules on when that can happen and how it happens. In Louisiana, if you've been married for less than a year, you can terminate the community and settle your assets and debts without having to go through the court system. If you've been married for over a year, you have to get it approved by a judge. And that's just full disclosure, we don't do family law. We don't handle divorces and stuff like that.
Right.
That's what the statute states, and there could be some exceptions to that, but that's generally what you're going to be looking at if you're trying to do that after the marriage has already occurred.
So even though not handling the family law, that is where, again, have your divorce attorney call Jarod and them so they can help you put this stuff together. Or when you're working with me, 30 years of doing this, I've seen tens of thousands of scenarios. And if I'm unsure, because look, when they said, hey, we've got a community property report, even though in my head I know this isn't right, I'm going to call you guys to see maybe something's changed.
Mm-hmm.
That I need to come out and tell the world, everybody go out and get divorced. We don't have to count their stuff anymore. Just go get this piece of paper. So the bottom line is, especially right now, people are getting divorced. There's a lot of things. Listen. It's tough enough to be going through these situations and the choppy water that you've got. You want to make sure that you're getting that right information, and that's the point of this show, and that's the point of the Total Home Authority. Having Colette and them on last week explaining the insurance stuff that's going on. And, so attorneys, while they're not right giving that advice on them, the community property, it's not going to do you any good when it comes to a loan.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, when it comes to buying a house, we have, as an investor, we got final say-so. So you could have so I don't want you to go out and start paying for a whole bunch of stuff you really just don't have to have, right? You really just don't have to have. All right, we got one segment left on the other side of the break. We've got more scenarios for my boy, the Legends of Law and Title in studio. 504-260-0995. If you want to join the show, you got one segment left, the Legends of Law and Title in studio. Got a ton of people hanging out with us on social media. I guess they enjoy seeing a gentleman with hair. There was a time, brother. There was a time, man. I'm representing a shirt today, dad bod. I mean, it is what it is. I'm 51, so be it. Hey, let's get into our weekly segment we like to call Rate Watch. Rate Watch is brought to you by Titos, handmade vodka. It's America's first handcrafted vodka. It's so delicious. But I did not have one last night because I was busy watching a little football. Lakeshore Titans. We won't talk about the game. We will talk about my son. Good job there, buddy. But it's a team game, but you did okay. We'll work on some other things. 30-year conventional. Last week, 5.60. This week, 5.73. So you're up 40 basis points in the last 2 weeks, okay? You're seeing some interest rate hikes go on. You're seeing a bunch of different things go on right now. But like I was just telling Jarod in the break, you know what? We had more new contracts come in this week than we've had in a while because, again, that 0.25%, people are going, I could still afford this house. I know I'm refinancing down the road. And they're listening to the message of values are not going to plummet. Mm-hmm. This isn't 2009 where you're going to have a ton of housing on the market, right? So people are going, you know what? I got to buy before Dwayne's on there saying 6. And that day will come, right? When? We don't know. 15-year, 5.10. That's a 15-year. That's why we're doing 30 years. We're not letting you buy a house right now. I'm going to argue with you left and right. I don't care if it's your forever home and this is where you're going to die. You know, it doesn't matter. We're doing a 30-year term because we know we got a refinance coming, right? And if you're 55 or older, we're looking at what's the next stage 10 years from now, or we may be putting you in a reverse then getting you all your money back, and you have no note. Talk about build wealth that way. FHA's over 5%, right at 5.25. Jumbo 4.92. 5/1 ARM 6% on the 5/1 ARM, and VA is right at 5.20%. So look, interest rate. It's a number on a piece of paper. Okay? Do we want to say 3.5, 4, 4.5? Sure we do. But we can't. That's why right now we're talking about how it's still a good situation. Heck, I was at your office yesterday. Closings rocking and rolling. Listen, obviously because of the lack of refinance volume, it slowed down.
A little bit.
Right? So, when you're looking at that, but what are people doing now? They're the people who are selling need to, the death, divorce, debt, different things like that, reload. And the people who are buying are like, you know what? I'm ready to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about what happened in 20 and 21. And if you go back to 2019, things are are the rates a little bit higher? Yeah, they are, but things are sort of lined up with that. Home values are there. That's why we're telling people, do not wait. Do not wait. And the reason being is this. Everybody who is saying, I'm going to wait for prices to go down, not going to happen. When you're seeing right now price reduced, and we're working on just a fantastic event that we'll be promoting starting next week once we finalize it, is when you see price reduced. A lot of this right now is because of maybe listen to your realtor. I get little Johnny peed in the house for the first time. That doesn't mean it's worth 10 grand more than what your realtor's telling you. Mm-hmm. So houses are still moving that or priced correctly. So talking about one of the things that y'all do, man, I think that just separates, on top of service is with Jeff and just the culture that y'all have built is community service, man. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit. I know y'all have got these things that y'all do all the time, the art, and just talk about the importance of giving back. And everybody, when I'm doing events, whether it's your branch, the branches you manage in Baton Rouge, in New Orleans, all over, everybody is just bought into the culture of it's not about us. It's about the community, right? Because you can be, y'all the largest, you're right, and that's a good feeling, but y'all don't, it's not just we come into your community and here we are. Yeah. It's we're going to give back. Talk a little bit about that.
We do that by hiring attorneys that are from the local community. We hire attorneys that are bought in and are there to help establish themselves, but also to promote the nonprofits and to support all the people in their community. We're involved with Habitat for Humanity in every level and every location of Fleur de Title, from Baton Rouge all the way to Slidell. We got a couple events coming up in Slidell that we're going to be sponsoring and have tables and inviting people to go do that. We're having an Art of Law event. We're in the Covington office in a couple weeks where we're going to be promoting a local artist. She's actually from Slidell. We're going to have inviting people from the community into our office to see her artwork. We're going to talk about estate planning and the value of doing that. We're going to be doing wills for veterans coming up soon. It's a way for us to just get some reps in and give back to the people who served our country, and we're going to offer them free wills and estate planning. So we do a lot of that kind of stuff. It's important to us to continue to pour into our communities because we feel, the more we put ourselves out there to support the people that support us, it's going to keep coming back to us in big ways.
Yeah, and it's funny because and Greg Ricks, who I'll be on his show at 10, taught me that years ago with his not just fundraising but just doing these events in the community and the philanthropic, and that's why I do the Help a Hound and the Toys for Tots and some different other events like that, just trying to give back and sponsoring things when we can. The hurricane stuff that goes out there, giving back to those type of things. It's just a feel good because ultimately, as business owners like we are, nobody opens their door every day and says, let's go break even. But there's nothing better than not only boots on the ground, but being there and showing your support for that community. Like, hey, we're not just here to make a bunch of money and kind of be successful and good luck. Let us know if, the proverbial air quotes, let us know if you need anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? It's the giving back.
Yeah, we always like to say you work hard and you do the right thing, good things are going to come to you. And one of the biggest things for me is being a provider, and that could be from, an opportunity for a job, some, the food off my table if you need it, but also just giving back to the community, giving back to the people saying thank you and give them an opportunity to enjoy themselves, especially in everything that's going on right now. It's easy for us to get caught up in the fact that we're trying to grind and keep our business moving, but other people just need to feel like you're there for them, and that's why I tell all of the attorneys that work for us, we're problem solvers. We're just there to answer questions, even if it doesn't directly benefit us. If it's if it's another company working on a file, we're still going to give them our advice and help them out because we want to be problem solvers and give back to the people in our community.
Well, and I think what you do, that is absolutely amazing. And I've had not everybody that I've sent y'all, and this is outside of the title, and I know you're helping a doctor right now with success. You take the most successful people in their craft, and they want to trust people, and then they realize they were misled. Mm-hmm. And the word for Florida Lee and FDL Law and Title and what Jeff and you have done is just, y'all are the ultimate, I guess the word I would come up with is resource. Mm-hmm. And right now, more than ever, Gumbo Nation, this is where you've got to go. They will get you the questions answered. I mean, what you brought up earlier about pre-approving your property, and more importantly, not your property, your title.
Yeah.
And so you can sell it and there be no hiccups, because somebody, again, that's selling right now, divorce, death, debt, they have to do it.
Yeah.
So we can't have any disruptions there, right? So tell everybody the best way to get in touch with you guys, man. And outside of going to mortgagegumbo.com, click on Total Home Authority, take you right to their website. Tell everybody, man.
Yeah, go to our Facebook page. You can send us a message. You can go to our website. They have a little chat thing where you can reach out to us there. But you can also just call me or text me at any time. I'm always available for my clients, 318-542-1001. Call me, text me. Happy to answer any questions. If I don't answer the phone immediately, it's probably because I'm wrangling a kid.
Yeah. You're burping a kid, man. You got, so you don't get to just go home today and relax.
No.
Football's starting. You'll relax because, you're hanging out with your daughters, but showed us during the break, man. His kids are reading. His 2- and 4-year-old daughter are reading to the baby. It's a new toy that just came on.
Yeah.
So thank you, brother. Tell Jeff what's up as well, man. Florida Lee Law and Title, they are the best. It's that simple. It's that simple. There's nobody better. Call them. Visit their site. Figure out and get the information, the ultimate resource. You're listening to Mortgage Gumbo with Dwayne Stein right here on iHeartRadio. Till next week, Gumbo Nation, keep stirring the pot.